Thank you for joining. Thank you for our speakers here. So we're going to kick things off with a quick round of intros, and then I'll let the BD gaming team here take it away. So Anton, why don't you go ahead and go first and introduce yourself and what you're working on to our community?
Sure. So I am one of the co-founders of Pocket Worlds. We're a kind of metaverse or virtual world gaming company. We've actually been around since 2014, and we operate two products, one called Highrise and another called Everskies. Both of them are kind of avatar-focused virtual worlds. Highrise is much more of a virtual world. You can download it on the app stores on iOS or Android. We have about 2 million monthly active users on Highrise. And then Everskies is almost like a Reddit crossed with avatars. You can go to everskies.com or download it on iOS and Android. About a million monthly active users there. And just background from in terms of blockchain and my experience with blockchain, I kind of got into it in 2013, 2014 when I first bought Bitcoin. Launched an NFT project in 2018 that was one of those kind of hot potato games. If anyone remembers those, right when kind of OpenSea was launching. I'm a seed investor in Sky Mavis, an investor in Immutable, and a few other projects, and have this very strong belief for the kind of product that we're building, which is fundamentally metaverse, where people can live and participate in a real economy. This concept of composable money is just the right technology for what we're building. And so about a year ago, despite the fact that we started in Web 2, we've started evolving really aggressively into Web 3, because at the end of the day, what we're trying to create is this environment where we have creators and consumers inside of a metaverse who are exchanging real value. And so to do that, we decided to partner with Avalanche and build out a subnet to make it really kind of easy and accessible for our existing users, but then also for the broader crypto community to get involved and engaged with what we're trying to build with Highrise World. And I guess I'll tell you a little bit more later about what Highrise World is kind of intended to be.
Yeah, super excited to hear all about it because this is definitely a new thing building on a subnet, and we're really excited to hear how you're kind of bridging that Web 2 world over to Web 3. And it sounds like you got a lot of experience and background there too. So excited to jump into it. Let's do quick intros on the Avalabs team. Joe, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. And yeah, really excited for this AMA discussion. This is actually, I think, my first one. So yeah, this is pretty awesome. So on my side, I've been in the space for about 5-6 years now, but been with Avalabs teams for a good amount, focusing heavily, I guess, over the past like 7-8 months or so on the gaming side. Trying to just build it up to kind of where it is right now, working alongside with Ed, and just really excited about what Pocket Worlds is doing. And I'm excited to dive into a few questions that I'm really excited to get into. But I'll pass it over to Ed to give a quick intro.
Yeah, it's great to see everybody in here, some familiar faces. Thank you, Anton, for joining us. I'm Ed. I run kind of our gaming biz dev here alongside Joe and a rock star team here at Avalabs. We've got a lot cooking up this year, and we'll keep bringing the heat in terms of in-depth conversations with the different games that we're bringing aboard. Obviously, really excited around Pocket Worlds. The team is super smart and has just been executing, and they're bringing some real traction and users into our first metaverse onto Avalanche, first native one. So we're excited. It's all yours, Joe.
Yeah, actually, when we first were talking to Anton, one of the things that really stood out was just how much they understand Web3. And, that's it's a rare combination when you have, a Web 2 publisher, game publisher who really understands how to build games and really understands how to convert and bring that to the Web 3 model. And so I guess before we get into the, what really brought you to bringing Pocket Worlds to Web 3, it would be kind of helpful to just understand. I know you kind of gave a little bit of an overview of the world, but it'd be helpful maybe to understand also the economy of Pocket Worlds and kind of how the type of currencies and assets that currently exist in the game, and then maybe we can dive into what made you want to convert that model into Web3?
Yeah, sure. So maybe just some semantic clarification. So Pocket Worlds is the name of our company. And then we have two products, one called Highrise and another called Everskies. And I'll talk more about Highrise because Highrise is actually what we're implementing our subnet on, and we're calling it the Highrise blockchain. And so Highrise, we started in 2016 as a mobile-first virtual world. I guess at the time, people called them virtual worlds. Today, we call them metaverses. And actually, the timing is interesting because if you remember in the mid to late 2000s, what was really big was there was Second Life, there was Habbo Hotel, there was IMVU, there was like a ton of these kind of virtual world concepts, and they kind of lost favor as mobile started to become pretty big in 2009, 2010. And then Roblox hadn't quite become big yet. So Roblox was growing and it was growing quickly, but it wasn't kind of a mainstream narrative yet. And so when we founded Pocket Worlds in 2013, 2014, we were like, okay, well, you have this new computing device on mobile. Virtual worlds seem to be a much richer, much better social experience than what you might normally, what people thought of as social at the time, which was like Facebook, news feeds and messaging. And so when we launched Highrise, we were actually one of the first kind of metaverse or virtual world platforms to exist on mobile. In fact, mobile didn't really have a really strong multiplayer gaming kind of environment until 2018, 2019 with the launch of like Fortnite, kind of like real kind of multiplayer gaming and Roblox going to mobile too. And so that's when we launched in 2016. The core idea is it's very heavily UGC focused. So you come in, you establish an identity through an avatar, and then all of the environments and the rooms inside of Highrise are built by the users. And we have a map editor that's actually built into Highrise where people kind of design and edit those rooms and environments. And then also from the beginning, since 2016, we launched with a secondary market at the core of what Highrise is. And so most of the items, whether it's clothing or furniture in Highrise, are tradable or exchangeable on a marketplace. And then our main currency, which is called gold, which is our hard currency, that is also tradable and usable on an exchange. And so from the very beginning, the secondary market was actually a primary driver of our growth and engagement of Highrise. And so now we have very high value items and very high value content inside of Highrise. Our currency is quite valuable and kind of important. And so in some ways, we kind of built this product that's very, I think, ready for blockchain and blockchain integration, kind of long before blockchain was, let's say, integratable. Even though we were looking into how to integrate it in like 2018, it just wasn't ready yet until technologies like kind of Avalanche came around, as well as, shadow wallets. If anyone's used like Magic Link or Venly or Fireblocks on the infrastructure side, or fiat on ramps like MoonPay and Ramp. That's when we really decided about a year ago, hey, we have all the ingredients for a strong metaverse, and we already have the economy. We have over $100 million a year in transaction volume inside of our economy. Let's tokenize it. Let's put it on chain, because that'll just kind of amplify the utility for our users, because now they're getting a currency that's exchange traded. Those items maybe are tradable on other exchanges. And then we have I don't know if now is a good time or later, but we have kind of a broader vision for how we evolve Highrise over the coming years that I think is pretty exciting too.
Yeah, let's go into that later, because we definitely want to touch on that. But one thing that really impressed us, I think, when we first started talking, and it makes sense with kind of the content that you have, is that with this many MAUs, like in this metaverse app, like 75% around that of your player base is female. Like, was that a strategic decision from the onset, or once you started building, you're like, oh, like we have a lot of female players and we'll keep building for them?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was a strategic decision from the onset. I mean, the main thing that we focused on from the onset was how do you intersect social networking and gaming. I think the result of a combination of the art style that we ended up going with, the rich social features that we have. We have a news feed built into Highrise. We have a messenger built into Highrise. We have very rich profiles. We have voice chat in rooms and environments. A combination of all of these features, I think, has driven to a certain kind of audience that's been really engaged, and that audience tends to be more kind of female. And I think what's really exciting about that is actually, so this is a largely female audience that has been super heavily engaged in buying, selling, and trading of virtual goods, which I think in the crypto community, people think of as like a predominantly, crypto bro kind of experience, the NFT market, when in reality, at least on the Highrise platform, you have 2 million monthly active users who are buying, selling, trading virtual goods for years and have appreciated the value of these virtual goods long before, Post Malone or Jimmy Kimmel bought a Bored Ape. So they kind of get it, right? And so I think the big question for us is how do we make blockchain and crypto accessible to those users? And again, a kind of a big component of that for us is the integration with the subnet, where we can actually use our own token as a gas token to make onboarding a lot more seamless for our existing users.
Yeah, and I can already hear Joe being super excited to talk about subnets and how you're integrating into Web3. But just kind of one more question was like, you've announced obviously that you're going to be moving and funneling into this Web3 world. How has your community responded to that? And you've obviously got a lot of rock star investors. You guys are part of Y Combinator. You've got Bitcraft. You've got Bessemer Venture Partners in your cap table. How have the investors approached, or what has the reception been for you guys kind of going all in on Web3?
Well, I'd say on the so two different categories. Like on the investor side, I'd say people have been pretty supportive. I mean, in general, I'd say our investors are just supportive of me and Jimmy. Jimmy's my co-founder and he's the CTO. Have been supportive of our decision making. It hasn't kind of failed them to date. And I think they kind of see the vision of where we're going. On the user side, it has been a lot of education. So we have a medium.com/pocketworlds. We do weekly AMAs inside of the app because our app has voice chat and we have like these voice rooms. We're active in Twitter and Discord and inside of Highrise, kind of trying to educate and trying to teach folks why is this good? Why does this give utility to users? And in the beginning, I think it was a little bit of a harder road. I think it's gotten much easier as people have gotten engaged. We launched an NFT collection in November with Immutable X that is called the Highrise Creature Club. It was 11,111 creature outfits that you can wear in Highrise, and you can wear kind of the individual components of those items as well. I would say that the UX was pretty challenging because you had to obtain Ethereum, transfer it to a MetaMask, then bridge over to Immutable, and then buy those items. And now today, if you want to buy them, you have to go to one of the Immutable supported exchanges. But I think despite that difficulty, people engaged pretty heavily. We sold out in like 30 seconds. We're still, probably a top 5 project on Immutable. And so people definitely engaged. And then as those items kind of, let's say, proliferated in Highrise and people started to see people wearing NFTs, I think people started to kind of understand it a little bit more and appreciate it a little bit more. But there's still quite a journey. And actually, we did phase 1 and phase 2 of our land sale. So we're launching land where people can build their own high rises. And again, I'll talk about that a little bit later. But we launched phase 1 and phase 2 on Ethereum mainnet. And phase 3, we're actually launching in such a way where you can buy it with fiat using in-game currency, or you can buy it with Ethereum. So we're kind of trying to bridge that gap and trying to connect, the blockchain experience with what our users are more familiar with.
Yeah, that's it's actually a really good transition, kind of into the Web3, economy that you're trying to build. And I understand that like you have this beginning of what you're building, and you've done it in a few phases. But I guess like this also, you're mentioning subnets, user experience. But before we get into the UX side of things, what exactly does it mean to like own things when you have this new Web3 economy as a player in your world? Like you have so many different items you have so many, you're going to have land plots, you have districts, pets. I mean, there's so many different things that people can own, but what does it really mean now in this new economy to like own as a player? Kind of curious about how you guys are thinking about that and the kind of benefits it'll bring to a lot of players.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's a few different things. I mean, one is I think we've spent since 2016, because the secondary market has been so important for us, we've actually spent a lot of time cultivating trust in us that if we release a piece of content, like let's say we release a piece of clothing in 2017, that we won't release it again. And so we've had to kind of, let's say, build up that reputation over time, which I think we've done a very good job of. One of the things about Web3 and blockchain is that, I mean, we will continue to do that, but it's less necessary because we actually don't have that much control over the database side of things. So if we release something and it has ID number 5, we can't modify that ID because the database itself is immutable. So I think that there's this kind of an additional layer of trust in the virtual goods that is just net benefit, net positive. I will say it's probably a little less important for us than it is for maybe some other apps that have kind of like burned their economies. We have been, I think, a pretty good like custodian of our economy. So that's one. Two is the composability of these items. So and it's across a few different vectors. So one is there are NFTs that exist out there in the world. Like I own, I think I'm wearing a doodle right now. So I own a doodle. That NFT exists on the Ethereum blockchain on mainnet. We've actually been experimenting with ways, and it's pretty straightforward, to bring in your NFTs that exist elsewhere. So for example, my doodle into Highrise, and then be able to wear your doodle in the Highrise world across the entire platform. So that's like bringing in external NFTs into the Highrise world, and we'll be launching some partnerships there that we'll be announcing over time. And then the other piece is the items that we actually end up launching on our subnet. So we're going to be launching a marketplace with its own launchpad, and you'll be able to launch NFT collections through our launchpad into the Highrise world with items that you can actually use in the Highrise world. And experience designers and developers will actually be able to use the data from those items that are launched in the Highrise world to create games and experiences out of them. So for example, say Pokemon could launch a collection of Pokemon NFTs that could then be used in a Pokemon Highrise where you can play Pokemon games using those Pokemon NFTs. And so this kind of creates this interesting interoperability between the different Highrise experiences and the Highrise assets that get launched through our launchpad. I don't know if that was sufficiently clear, but yeah. That's kind of how we think about it.
Yeah. So I guess just like re-highlight, basically as like a player, you're going to be able to, own these assets as you normally would, right? But now there's going to be this like kind of transition where, you actually get to trade these and have extract value out of it rather than just injecting capital. So I guess like as like a player, you can own your own room and own your own clothing and invite people over to play these games. And kind of be able to, actually have value that you can extract out of it rather than just injecting capital. Is that that's kind of also like the high level of it too, right?
That's also true. I mean, just, purely, I guess, pragmatically, like right now we have gold, which is our hard currency that is the kind of underlying currency that people buy, sell, trade. That gold cannot be exchanged back into fiat or back into dollars or back into ETH or whatever. As we introduce this new token that we're calling the Rise token, which powers our subnet as well as a bunch of other things, that token will be exchange traded. And so if you pay someone in the Rise token or you exchange an item for Rise token, then you can then exchange that Rise token into fiat or into Ethereum or into whatever else it's traded against. So yeah, it unlocks a ton of the potential for value if you own high value content in Highrise, or if you create interesting experiences and people pay you in Rise token.
Right. So there's I guess going back, I think you mentioned the Roblox example, right? You have the ability as a creator to create your own worlds. And now you get to kind of monetize, or even like Minecraft, right? And I guess with Highrise, now you're going to be able to actually own these districts or own your own plot of lands. Then you can actually monetize it, and there's like this whole transparent economy that's right behind it. I don't know.
Yeah, let me summarize actually how that works.
Yeah.
So we're introducing this concept of the Highrise World, and the Highrise World is actually composed of multiple different high rises. So the high rise that people experience right now, the one where we have 2 million monthly active users, we're calling that Highrise 101, which sits at the center of the Highrise World. So that is one high rise. Then we have this other product called Everskies, and we're going to be launching another high rise in the Highrise World for Everskies, and that'll be called the Everskies High Rise. And the vision that we have for the future and what we're building out is if you own a piece of land in the Highrise World, then you can launch your own tower. So the nomenclature starts to get a little confusing, and we're clarifying that. But basically, a tower is a collection of experiences, and you can put lots and lots of different experiences in a single tower. And the future that we would love to see is, say you're a brand, or say you're a community. Like, let's say let's use Doodles as an example. Let's say you're Doodles. If you're Doodles, you have a Reddit, you have a Discord. We'd like you to have a high rise, right? So that's your community. It's a different social experience than Reddit or Discord. Reddit is a forum, Discord is chat. Highrise is a metaverse. And that metaverse is yours. You can launch experiences into it. You can have other creators launch experiences into your Highrise, but it's your community and your Highrise. So like doodles.highrise.game, that's going to be a place where people go to experience the Doodles metaverse inside of the Highrise world. And what we'd like to do is see lots of communities and lots of kind of brands build out their own high rises using our technology. And so what we're doing right now is we're evolving our game engine. Right now, our game engine is on Gen 3, and it uses a technology called Coco StudioX. We're evolving it to Unity right now. And in parallel, we're building a separate standalone map editor that allows you to build really unique and custom experiences that you can then deploy to any of the towers. So you could deploy it to the Highrise 101 tower, which is ours, or the Everskies tower, which is the Everskies community, or eventually, if Doodles were to launch a Highrise, you could deploy it to the Doodles tower. Or, if Avalanche were to launch a Highrise, you could deploy it to the Avalanche Highrise, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of the how we're zooming out and implementing kind of blockchain across the Highrise world. And I would say the big difference between, let's say, like Sandbox and Decentraland and what we're doing. Sandbox and Decentraland, as a user, you enter Sandbox. Sandbox is really the, let's say, like the culture. The culture is defined by Sandbox. And then within Sandbox, you discover a bunch of experiences. Ours is actually inverted. So ours looks more like Discord. And when you join Discord, you don't join Discord, you join a specific Discord, you join a specific community. And we're applying the same model. So when you join the Highrise world, you join a specific Highrise. Maybe you join Doodles Highrise, or maybe you join Bored Apes Highrise, or maybe you join some other Highrise. And all those Highrises, your identity exists across the entire Highrise world. So you have one account, one profile, one social feature, but the Highrises themselves are relatively partitioned in the same way that Discords are partitioned. And I actually think that's a more compelling go-to-market strategy if we want to get from, say we're at 3 million MAU, including Highrise and Everskies today. Let's say we want to get to 300 million MAU. I think it's a more compelling strategy to partition the communities and let people access different communities rather than having one monolithic community. Because we saw that happen with Second Life, we saw it happen with, IMBU, we saw it happen with even Roblox, which is huge, 150 million monthly active users. But the thing is that they're all 12-year-olds. And if you're a 35-year-old and you join Roblox, it actually won't be a compelling experience for you because the community has become pretty monolithic and focused. And so that's kind of our approach. I don't know if that's like sufficiently clear, but that's where we're going.
Yeah, it's exciting. I think let's fast forward to like a year from now, after, or a year or two now, after the full kind of subnet launch, and you've pivoted to like give us at a high level, like what does that experience look like for anybody who's like, so basically all these different worlds that represent different communities, different lands, like any alpha you can drop of what the mad lads at Pocket World are thinking of?
Yeah, so I think in 2-3 years, what it looks like is, let's say you're a new user, and you are really into some brand, or you join some sort of community, like you end up, I don't know, again, let's use the Doodles example. You end up buying a Doodles. When you buy a Doodles today, you join the Discord, and that's where everything is happening, right? And it's a pretty static, flat experience. So Doodles would have a Doodles Highrise. So you enter the Doodles Highrise. You can wear your Doodles in that Highrise. That Highrise has a collection of different experiences that you can experience. Say Doodles wants to throw a concert, right? They want to throw a concert on Thursday in virtual space. Well, they can do that in one of their experiences inside of Highrise using our map editor. And so they kind of implement this concert, or they want to host an AMA. They host an AMA in actually one of the rooms in Highrise where we have voice chat. We already have voice chat, but you have this visual representation where all these Doodles are standing around and looking at each other, and kind of like looking at the speaker and texting each other and talking to each other. And so you have this like entire universe. Maybe somebody built a game, like a Doodles game, using our map editor. They built some sort of game that you could play, and in exchange you get a reward of maybe an NFT or maybe some currency that exists in the Doodles tower. So that's kind of like one, implementation or future that we definitely see. And then on top of all that, in the Highrise world, there's this NFT marketplace where you can launch content that can be used across any tower. So, you might launch an outfit, or, even again, using the Doodles example, you launch like a Doodles derivative, like a Doodles pet. And you launch that Doodles pet using our launchpad. And then that Doodles pet follows you around no matter which Highrise tower you go to. So you leave the Doodles tower and you go to the Bored Apes tower. And in that Bored Apes tower, you're actually still wearing the Doodles pet that you acquired in the world marketplace. And all of that is happening on the Highrise blockchain. You can, of course, bridge over to other chains. I would say if we look super far out, like let's say we look 4 years out, we're pretty chain agnostic. Right now to bootstrap and to grow, I think the Highrise blockchain is a really important component. But very long term, if there's an experience or a brand or a community on Polygon, or a brand or an experience on Solana or mainnet, there's no reason why they couldn't use our technology to build up their towers or build up the high rises. I do think that in the short term, the subnet strategy is optimal because the user experience can be very clean. But in the long term, at the end of the day, what we do is we build platform tools, right? Like we build world building tools, we build social features. We're not really blockchain developers. Of course, we're building that expertise and we know it pretty well, and we're going to continue to build it out. But at the end of the day, we're trying to leverage other people's infrastructure and really give people who have communities the ability to build better, richer social experiences for those communities using our more like graphics tools and social tools and things like that. Hopefully that paints like a nice picture of where we're going.
That's so exciting. I think again, I said this in the beginning, there are very few Web2 game publishers who understand the user experience and pain points of Web3 and how to actually achieve those and overcome them. And so that's a big reason why we're really excited about with what you're doing, and to transition to kind of the user experience side. What are some things that you guys are thinking about to make this Web3 adoption for your massive user base? You have well over 2 million monthly active users, and it's going to be something that is going to be you have to onboard these users into Web3, into this whole new economy. I know Avalanche Subnets are part of this, but what are things that you guys are doing to help streamline this onboarding?
Yeah, so we are working and talking to a lot of the shadow wallet, or the custodial wallet companies. So I mentioned a few, but Magic and Bentley and Fireblocks, and there are several others. So we're talking to folks about how do we set up wallets for our users without the overhead of needing to figure out, MetaMask and getting your ETH on Coinbase and then transferring it to MetaMask or whatever. And so that's one component. A second component is how do people actually load up their wallets? How do they get currency? And there's I would say two factors to that. One is just the fiat on ramp. So we're talking to MoonPay and Ramp, which are two, on ramp, fiat on ramp technology providers. We're talking to them about how to do that on our subnet. And there's quite a bit of tech work, I think, that will need to happen for that to happen. And then there's another piece, which is how do people pay for transactions on the network? And I do think that the subnet plays a big role there, because if people are using the Rise token, we can either eat the cost because we're such big well, at the end of the day, the Rise token ends up flowing to the Treasury anyway. Or, we can distribute Rise tokens strategically to users based on engagement, based on some other things, so that they can then use it to process transactions. So there's lots of interesting ways that we can say, well, you don't need to bring in a third-party currency, like ETH or USDC or whatever, in order to engage and participate within our ecosystem, especially if we can stand up a custodied wallet for you. So those are the things that we're thinking through on how to integrate. And I guess one important thing to consider is that this is not intended to be a fundamental change for our users. So it should be purely incremental, in the sense that you don't need to have a wallet. But if you do have a wallet, maybe you can do certain things, and there are features available to you, like staking or participating in exchange, or even being able to collect Rise tokens so that then you can exchange it to USDC and then buy a cup of coffee with it. Those are like incremental value adds that you get by integrating or connecting with a wallet on our platform. So we're not trying to fundamentally change the user experience for 2 million MAU. We're trying to add to it and just make it better.
And that makes a lot of sense, right? Because you don't want to have everyone up front forced to just and the whole MetaMask thing, store your keys and all that stuff. And so I know that you have the DAO Treasury. Actually, the Treasury comes into a big play on this, right? So I think you have some functionality with it, with the token, the game currencies you can earn in game, and then you can convert those into actual ERC20 tokens. Can you kind of dive into that a little bit, that whole process?
Yeah, no. So it's kind of the opposite. So it's the opposite. So
please correct me.
Yeah. So anything that's earned in the game cannot be converted back into Rise or back into any kind of ERC20. And the reason for that is because economies are very delicate. So just look at Axie, where they have a dual token system. Look at Krabata now. Look at DOK. So these dual token systems where they emit a ton of currency, they end up growing, experiencing hyper growth, and then intense plateau, and then kind of intense decline. That's not the kind of economy that we're building. We're building a real economy. And what I mean by that is we have creators. Those creators are building experiences. They're building assets like clothing and furniture. They're building towers, meaning they're landowners who are kind of cultivating community and bringing community. And all we want to do is give them a currency to be able to transact with each other. It is not like a Ponzi-nomic model with a bunch of complex, resources that are drained and sunk and blah, blah, blah. And at the end of the day, it's just a bunch of friction to create a big Ponzi scheme. Obviously I'm exaggerating a little bit for effect, but that is kind of the way that we're designed. And so the way that our system works is kind of inverted. So the Rise token is the fundamental token. We're a single token economy in the Highrise world. However, each tower can have its own currency. That currency is not a cryptocurrency. That currency is a currency stored in our database. So gold in Highrise 101, that's our core currency right now. Stars is the currency in Everskies. And say Blizzard or Avalanche were to launch their own tower, maybe you would introduce snowflakes or something. And that can be your currency. Now, people can buy that currency with Rise token or with other tokens. They can buy it with USDC, they could buy it with Rise, they could buy it even with fiat. Anytime somebody ends up buying anything with Rise or any other currency like USDC or fiat, a percentage of that will flow to the token treasury. So if you buy a currency from a tower, then a percentage of that will flow to the token treasury. If you buy a virtual good on the marketplace, a percentage of that fee will flow to the treasury. And so the treasury ends up collecting basically any fee on the platform that we charge. So any transaction, they get a percentage of the entire transaction volume. And then if it's collected in USDC or some other token that's not Rise, we'll occasionally swap it into Rise, or the treasury will occasionally swap it into Rise. And this is just kind of like basic treasury management. But then also that treasury will be used for ecosystem development. So we'll offer milestone reward payments to experienced developers, tower owners, and asset developers, where if they build really cool stuff and people end up buying it, then we'll kind of juice the reward by paying you in tokens. So that's ecosystem development. We'll offer staking rewards. So if you stake your token, you get some kind of rewards. We'll probably offer liquidity rewards. So if you end up providing liquidity for, let's say, AVAX to Rise or USDC to Rise, we'll probably offer some rewards to, for that staking that you're providing, or that liquidity pool staking. And then we may occasionally burn token. So that would be put up to a vote. But essentially, if the token holders decide, hey, we should burn some tokens that are in the treasury, maybe we would do that. So that's kind of how we actively manage the treasury. But one important point is, the economy of each tower. We want you, if you own a tower, to be able to manage your own economy. So you can introduce your own currency, whatever. But that cannot affect the economy of the world, because if it affects the economy of the world, then, super bad news for everybody. So you cannot convert your snowflakes or your gold or your stars back into Rise token. It must stay in that tower now. It is a tower specific currency. And Rise token is really the global broad tower. So we would expect the Rise token, which is in limited supply and has all these fee mechanics, we would expect it to be pretty deflationary, not inflationary.
That's awesome. I mean, the white paper is 30 pages. Everybody in this audience is really lucky that you don't have to read through all of that, because Anton is just spilling all the juice here. So
Yeah.
You guys are obviously thought about this really in depth, and you guys were the same way when you were thinking about your blockchain. So I know you've talked a little bit about kind of subnets and all that, but we'd love to hear kind of your process. From what I remember, you guys had spoke to everybody, and we're kind of going in one direction, and then we came in, and you guys ended up choosing the right blockchain, if you will. But we'd love to hear kind of your process in that.
Yeah, definitely. So we looked at, we launched a collection on Immutable. We decided we needed an EVM sooner than later. So Immutable wasn't an option for that, just because there's no EVM compatibility, and we needed to deploy some smart contracts and get some kind of native processing going, especially as we were launching our own token, and wanted to support things like staking. And then we looked at Polygon, Solana, and Avalanche. Those were kind of the three that we seriously considered. With Polygon, we decided, so we looked at it. We looked at a history of occasional downtime, not the biggest thing in the world, congestion, not the biggest thing in the world. But I think the most important thing was, if we're going to be building on a main chain, then what we'd be looking for in that main chain is some sort of liquidity. So meaning there should be a kind of a big audience on that main chain. And if we were to launch NFTs or we were to launch content on that main chain, there would be a lot of demand for it from the rest of the chain, because there's a lot of liquidity there. And we just weren't seeing that on Polygon. I think, if you look at the number 25 project on Polygon, the TVL and the transactions, the volume of transactions just in terms of dollar values is fairly low. And so we weren't seeing kind of a lot of opportunity to take advantage of liquidity, but then at the same time have the downside of congestion and occasional downtime, and needing to use a different currency for gas, rather than a currency that we can have like a lot more control over and give away if we want to. And it was like similar logic to Solana. I mean, Solana has more liquidity than Ethereum. Than Polygon. Definitely not more than Ethereum. But one is like the development environment being in Rust and being like pretty custom meant it's a little harder to find engineers. Started to see that ecosystem kind of slow down, to be honest, as we were exploring it. And yeah, occasional downtime, even just, what was it, last week? It was down for like 7 hours or something. And so if we're going to be building, our own ecosystem, we decided it makes sense, instead of us trying to steal liquidity from the network and saying, oh, you're a Solana user, come use Highrise. Instead, we have 3 million MAU across Everskies and Highrise. Let's give them the best technology and let's get them to be able to kind of participate in it and activate them on our subnet versus trying to bring in, let's say 100,000 users from Solana or from Polygon. I think that makes less sense at this phase of our company where we already have many users and we just want to activate them. In the long term, though, like I said, the very long term, for the chains that end up winning, there's no reason why we wouldn't consider incorporating them and saying, hey, you can come and build a Highrise here. That's no problem. So yeah, that's how we thought about it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I think we're definitely really excited to unpack the subnet with you guys, and I guess on that piece, what are some like key dates that I guess we could look out for over this next year, 2 years horizon?
Yeah, so we have quite a roadmap. So I'm actually here in Houston right now, where we're doing a retreat for our engine team, and we're building out a new engine that I mentioned in Unity. So I guess maybe I'll talk about a few different initiatives. We basically have, well, three big ones. One of them is the blockchain, the subnet. So first, I'll mention the engine. So the new engine, we're going to be launching Highrise on web for the first time. We're a mobile first app, but we're launching on web for the first time in June, July timeframe. And in parallel, we're building out a new map editor or world builder that is a standalone application that uses the Unity runtime that lets you build way richer, more sophisticated experiences inside of any of the Highrises. So we're launching those two kind of June, July, August. And in September, we're going to start migrating the mobile app over to Unity. So that's on the kind of the engine side. On the blockchain side, I expect in 2 to 3 months, we'll be launching the subnet. So launching the subnet is pretty important for us in order to get our token launched as well. And so right now we're kind of in the process of setting up the token. We're doing some, kind of, let's say, strategic sales in order to get the right partners on board. And so we intend to launch the subnet within about, let's say, 2 months, get the token integrated into the subnet so that you can process transactions on that subnet, and then kind of block and tackle all of the core components. I mean, we'll be doing that in parallel, but we're block and tackling all the core components of the subnet. So that's things like bridges. So we're talking to a bunch of different third-party bridge partners to see which bridges we want to, or which bridge we want to implement between, the C chain and our subnet. We're talking to exchanges to see, do we want to implement like a Uniswap V2 exchange so that you can do exchanges on our subnet, or do we want to just rely on like a C chain exchange, like Trader Joe or something? We're figuring out all the Oracle stuff. So there's a lot of conversations to be had about figuring out how do we get data onto our subnet and the data that we need.
So I guess like with the subnet launch, when do you think like the game would be launched, and dates around that, and the sale, the land sale dates, and I guess for the audience, if there's any
sure, yeah, so,
estimated.
Okay, so land is going to be on Ethereum, And the reason we do that is because it should be a low transaction volume, high value game in the long run. We did phase 1 and phase 2, which were very exclusive sales, just to people who own creatures and in very limited supply, about a week or two ago. Next week or the week after, we are doing phase 3, which means we're selling land as a more open sale, which you can buy with Ethereum, or within the Highrise app, you can purchase these tokens to be able to buy it. So that's kind of phase 3 of land. In terms of launching, being able to build on your tower or being able to build on your land, we would expect that to start happening November, December, maybe January. So the first thing we need to do is launch the new engine, deploy the new engine, and then you can start building on that tower. In parallel, we are building the subnet. So the subnet should go live in two to 3 months, let's say. But that subnet will be pretty rudimentary. So what's going to happen is we're going to migrate the creatures, the Highrise Creature Club creatures, over to our subnet. We're going to launch a marketplace, and you'll be able to buy, sell, trade those creatures on our subnet. In parallel, we're going to be figuring out how do we get everyone a wallet and how do we get fiat on-ramp to work. And I think that should happen in, say, probably like October or November timeframe. So does that add a little more clarity?
Yeah. And honestly, I probably have like so many other questions I'd want to dive into, but I won't take up the air in the room. I guess we can open up to the audience if there's any questions that people are burning to ask. We can get that rolling.
Yeah, let's see if we have some fan questions here. So just if you want to ask a question for Anton or Ed or Joe, just go ahead and request as a speaker. As a reminder, you have to be on mobile to speak on Spaces. So just put in requests. I'll try to pull up a few as we wrap up here and see if these work. So the first one is Edwin. Let's see if your speaker works. All right, go ahead.
Hey, aloha, gentlemen. This question is actually for the Avalanche team. Have you considered or done any initial consideration about building out an Avalanche Highrise experience? Because it sounds like it could be a very effective tool for using the Highrise to bring people through the subnet into the C chain.
Hey, Edwin. Good to hear from you. Do you mean building like a custom Avalanche or Avalabs Highrise within that world?
Yes, and so having an Avalanche experience there where people could learn more about Avalanche and then maybe kind of guide them or handhold them into beginning to interact on the C chain?
It's a great idea. We haven't discussed that in depth with Pocket World's team. We've been mainly working with them on behind the scenes and getting stuff set up. But I think we could definitely make that happen. What do you think, Anton?
Yeah, no doubt. We would love that.
Yeah, sounds like a great place to definitely drive some more education for the community and get people involved in the larger ecosystem and kind of build a conversation there within our own Highrise. So yeah, that makes sense. All right. Thanks, Edwin. So let's I'm going to add Kari here and see if this works out. Go ahead.
Hey guys, thanks for inviting. I've been listening to I'll say the majority content of the AMA. I think it's quite good. Look for some background on Pocket Worlds and also Highrise, and really love the design. My name's Carrie, by the way, and I'm heading this thing in OKX. So I'd love to have a chat with you guys on potential listing. So if you can let me know, or DM me afterwards, set up a call or something, and see if we can get something going. Yeah. This is question for the Highrise team.
Yes. I just DM'd you.
Okay. Thanks, man.
Love it. I love it. Doing business development on Twitter AMA. I love it.
Yeah, exactly. I think
Yes.
it's more effective in the way that pretty much captures some of the, I would say, important points. But I know you guys definitely got lot more like roadmap to go to and a few things to consider. And yeah, just a small touch on OKX recently. So we just sponsor like, McLaren. So the volume is actually really good. And yeah, hopefully we can get something going. And I know you guys got decent backers and stuff, and Avalanche is definitely the place to be.
Thanks, Carrie.
Yeah.
Let's take that offline if possible.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry,
Thank
if
you.
I being saying too much.
No, you're good. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Carrie.
Yeah, feel free.
All right. Let's try out one more here. We got Benji. Benji, go ahead if you have a question for the Pocket World team.
Hey, it's Benji here from Vrumble, CEO. I was just wondering, Anton, what are some of kind of your challenges that you're thinking will be happening in the next couple of months as you get the subnet going and your integration to Unity? Any kind of ifs or potential fears that you have around that stuff, and kind of what are your guys' thoughts about solving those or approaching those problems?
Yeah, great question. I think as far as the new engine stuff, so like I said, I'm out here on a retreat actually road mapping it, and I'm feeling a lot of confidence around the engine. I mean, that probably the biggest thing right now is just there are some like threading and multi-threading components. I mean, this starts to get a little more sophisticated with the engine stuff, but it's all very solvable and doable. And I'm actually very excited about the evolution of our engine because this is the first time we're going to be able to support 3D, which is a pretty big deal. On the subnet side, I will say there are quite a few, at least for us right now, unknowns that we're definitely working through and figuring out. One thing that gives me a lot of confidence is the Ava Labs team and the Avalanche team in general. They are super responsive and super supportive of everything that we're building. Given that what we're trying to do, I think is pretty new in the space in terms of just making that accessibility really high. I mean, if you look at most NFT projects, the number of users is just so low. And what we're trying to do is onboard, 2 million new users onto a chain. I think there will obviously be difficulty there. But again, I think what gives me a lot of confidence is, first of all, our team, we've been executing for like 8 years. So we've gone through a lot of issues in the past that we've managed to work through. But then also, again, I've been talking to a lot of different blockchains in terms of figuring out who the right partner is for us. And Ava Labs have just been the most engaged and responsive. And so that gives me a lot of confidence too.
Yeah, smart people for sure. Red, thanks for answering my question. I'd love to connect, man.
Yeah, likewise.
Amazing. Thanks, Benji, for the question. And it looks like we're wrapping it up here, and we had some great questions from the audience here, and really enjoyed having you on, Anton. Thank you for walking us through all this amazing info, what's coming up with the Highrise World, and just what you're doing in Web3 overall. I think it's really exciting, and I think there's a great path there to bring on millions of new users. So wanted to wrap it up and just give you a chance to give us any final thoughts, what your, other things that you're excited about coming up, anything anybody should keep an eye on, and how they can follow you.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, you can follow me on this account, Anton.e. And then also follow Highrise on Highrise app and our company Pocket Worlds on its Pocket Worlds. In terms of following along, yeah, I strongly suggest kind of joining our Discord or at least following along on the Twitter. We're going to be sharing lots and lots of content on the engine developments. We're going to be sharing content on the subnets. We're trying to build very transparently so that kind of everybody sees what we're doing. I think I found as a community manager, because that's definitely part of my job as CEO of Pocket Worlds, transparency is just so key. And so we're really leaning into that and kind of sharing what we're working on, not hiding too much. So we kind of like to build in public, so we're going to keep doing that. And yeah, definitely stay tuned. I think the other thing too is, if you're interested, feel free to download the app, download Highrise on iOS or Android. Also, feel free to check out Everskies. They're both really cool apps. really strong, great, compelling communities that you can be a part of. And, worst case scenario on Highrise, I will say the reason why people play Highrise, if you ask anybody who's stuck around for longer than, a week, why do you use Highrise? Everybody says because of the friends I made on Highrise. So, if you're hankering to make some friends, Highrise is a great place to do that. So yeah, that's all I got.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for jumping on. We're really excited to see this come to life on an Avalanche subnet and introduce it to the entire Avalanche community. So yeah, make sure you're following along what they're doing. Follow them across, join their Discord channels. Joe, Ed, thanks for joining as always. And we got more spaces coming up next week. So stay tuned to our Twitter account for more. And thanks everyone for jumping on and have a great rest of your day.
Awesome.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, everyone. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.